Snow White short story for kids.
Hello, beloved readers. Today, I have an exciting story to share with you. I hope it brings you joy and excitement.
Today, Luna have a book named Snow White short story for kids. I think they're so pretty. I hope you guys really enjoy it. I love it. Please give this video a like if you enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe to Kid channel for more stories. Thank you for reading. So, here we go. Once upon a time, a princess named Snow White lived in a castle with her father, the king, and her stepmother, the queen. The queen, Snow White's stepmother, was a very beautiful lady. She had a magic mirror, which could answer any questions about people within the kingdom. She would get ready every morning and ask the magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" "You are the fairest of them all," the magic mirror would always reply. However, after getting married to the king, when the queen asked the mirror the same question, she was shocked. "Snow White is the fairest of them all," said the magic mirror.
"What?"
yelled the queen. "No one is fairer than I." "Snow White is the fairest of them all," repeated the magic mirror.
"What do you know? You're a mirror,"
roared the queen. And she stormed off. Still, the queen was angry and decided to be rid of the girl once and for all. The queen called for her servant, a huntsman. "Find a reason to take Snow White deep into the woods," she said, pointing her long finger at the servant. "Kill her." The huntsman was shocked, but she was the queen, and what could he do? The next day he took Snow White into the woods. As he drew his knife to slay her, he stopped and said, "I cannot do this." He dropped to his knees and said, "How can I say this to you? The queen, your stepmother, ordered me to kill you, but I cannot." Snow White was alarmed and scared. "You must run away," said the huntsman, "far into the woods. Now, and never come back to the castle." Snow White turned and ran into the woods as fast as she could. It was getting dark, and the wolves were starting to howl. Then all of a sudden, far away, she saw a light. Who was living so deep in the woods? She stepped up closer. It was a cottage.
"Hello,"
she said, knocking softly on the door. Hello? But there was no answer. The door was a little bit open. She opened it some more and stepped in. "Hello, is anyone home?" She looked around. She had never seen a messier living room. "But it's a roof over my head for tonight. Maybe if I clean up around here, I can earn my sleep," she thought. As she cleaned, she thought of someone she already missed. Before her father had remarried, she and a prince who lived in the next kingdom were getting to know each other. They would take long walks in the royal garden and tell each other stories and laugh. After the queen had moved into the castle, her stepmother had made a new rule: no more visitors. Now the prince had to slip over the palace gate in secret. He would call out to her from under her window, and they could talk a bit that way. It wasn't as good as the long walks, but it was the best they could manage. Now that she had to run away from home, would she ever see him again? After Snow White cleaned up the living room, she went upstairs. On the second floor, there were 7 little beds lined up in a row as if for children. Tired from cleaning, Snow White yawned and lay across all 7 of the beds. Soon she fell fast asleep. Snow White didn't know that the house belonged to 7 dwarfs: Bashful, Doc, Dopey, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, and Sneezy. They had gone out to work as usual and were about to return home from a long day of working in the jewel mine. When they opened the door, They were surprised to see their cottage all cleaned up. "What kind of magic is this?" said one of the dwarfs, whose name was Dot. "I wouldn't mind more magic like this," said another of the dwarfs with a smile. His name was Dopey. "We'd better check upstairs," said another dwarf, whose name was Grumpy. "Something is fishy around here, that's for sure." There, lying across all their beds, was a young lady fast asleep. "Who are you?" said all the dwarfs at once. Snow White woke up with a jolt. The 7 dwarfs could tell she was as surprised as they were. But then they heard her story. They sympathized with her. "Stay here with us," said Bashful. "That's sweet," said Snow White. "But if I were to stay here at your home, I would have to do something for all of you." "You already cleaned up our place," said Sneezy. "But there must be something else I can do for you," said Snow White. The 7 dwarfs shrugged. "Do you know how to read?" said Dot. "We have these books filled with wonderful tales and would love to be able to read them." And so it was agreed that Snow White would teach them how to read. To celebrate their new friendship, Snow White and the 7 dwarfs sang and danced the night away. The next morning, the dwarfs left the house for work. Back at the castle, the queen marched up to her mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," she demanded, "who is the fairest of them all?" "Snow White is the fairest of them all," said the magic mirror. "That's impossible," screamed the queen. "The girl is no longer alive." "Snow White lives," said the magic mirror. And an image was shown on the mirror of Snow White living in the cottage of the 7 dwarfs. The queen turned red with rage. She screamed, "Who does she think she is? Snow White will not get away with this." At the cottage, when the 7 dwarfs were away at work, there was a knock on the door. "Who is it?" said Snow White. She remembered the warning of the 7 dwarfs not to open the door to anyone. "I'm only a poor old woman," came a squeaky voice, "selling apples," but it was the evil queen, disguised as an old woman. "It's raining out here, my dear," said her voice through the door. "Please let me in." Poor thing, thought Snow White, having to go door to door selling apples in the rain. And so she opened the door. "Take a look at this big red apple," said the old woman, who, as you know by now, was really the queen in disguise. She held the red apple close to Snow White's face. "Lovely, my dear, isn't it?" "I would like very much to buy your apple," said Snow White. "But I have no money." "That fine comb in your hair will make a good trade," said the old woman. "Well, all right then," said Snow White. She took the comb out of her hair and gave it to the old woman, who then gave her the apple. Snow White took a big bite. Alas, the fruit was poisoned. At once, Snow White fell to the ground in a deep sleep. Just then the door flew open. In marched the 7 dwarfs home from the day's work. They were totally shocked to find Snow White lying on the floor and what must be her stepmother beside her, laughing. They chased that evil queen out the door and into the storm. Up to the very top of a mountain they chased her. All of a sudden, lightning hit the mountain. The queen fell, and she was never seen again. But there was nothing to help poor Snow White. She stayed absolutely still in her deep sleep. The 7 dwarfs gently lifted her into a glass coffin. Day and night they kept watch over her. One day the prince happened to pass through. Ever since he had learned that Snow White was missing at the castle, he was searching for her, far and wide. Now he had finally found her, but in such a state. The prince pulled open the glass coffin. Her face glowed so bright, even in that deep sleep. He gently took one of Snow White's hands in his own and kissed it. At once, Snow White's eyes opened. With love's first kiss, the evil queen's spell was forever gone. Now nothing stood in the way for Snow White and the prince being together forever. They returned to the prince's kingdom and lived happily ever after. We have reached the end of the story. Good job, friends. Thank you so much for reading with Luna on Teep Kid channel. Bye. I'll see you next time.